Your approach is too traditional for where we're heading, she explained during my termination. We need leadership that prioritizes digital innovation. My name is Malcolm Reed. For 14 years, I led the Eastern Regional Division of Aspen Grove Publishers in Boston. I built that team from the ground up, transforming a struggling territory into the company's revenue powerhouse. I didn't rely on algorithms or automated marketing systems. I built genuine connections, remembered birthdays, attended book launches, and understood exactly which editors were looking for which manuscripts. By last spring, my division was generating nearly 65% of the entire company's revenue. Not that anyone in the executive suite seemed to notice until the quarterly profit reports appeared in their inboxes. When Sophia Chin became CEO 8 months ago, she arrived trailing consultants in designer suits and armed with slick data visualizations. Suddenly, every meeting revolved around digital ecosystem development and disruptive publishing paradigms. She'd never actually worked in publishing before. Came from a major tech firm in Seattle, but the board was captivated by her vision. I kept delivering results, stayed focused on my clients, but I could feel her watching me during leadership meetings. I was the most senior director there, the only one who still carried a leather-bound notebook and preferred face-to-face meetings to video calls. The summons arrived on a Wednesday morning. Her assistant, Marcus, couldn't quite meet my eyes when he appeared at my office door. She'd like to see you at 3 in the executive conference room. I thanked him and returned to my call with Westfield Literary, our most valuable client. We were finalizing a 4-year contract renewal worth nearly $15 million. The kind of deal that materialized because I'd had breakfast with Elizabeth Westfield every month for 11 years. The conference room had been completely redesigned since Sophia's arrival. Steel and glass everywhere, modular furniture, and an enormous touchscreen display dominating the wall where our century-old mahogany table once stood. 3 people waited: Sophia, Marcus, and someone from HR I'd never met. I knew what was coming before she spoke. "Malcolm, thank you for everything you've contributed to Aspen Grove," she began, hands folded precisely on the table. "But we've decided to take leadership in a different direction." I listened quietly as she explained how my methods were behind the times, how they needed someone more aligned with their digital-first strategy, someone with fresh perspective, though she was careful to avoid directly mentioning age. I thanked her for the opportunity, shook her hand firmly, and walked out without protest. 14 years ended in a 17-minute meeting. What Sophia failed to understand was that in literary publishing, especially with the established houses that comprised 85% of our business, trust wasn't built through data analytics or email automation. I cleared out my office while the team was at a mandatory digital strategy workshop. No dramatic farewells. No scene. Just dignity intact. But when I reached my car in the parking garage, I sat motionless, staring at my phone. For missed calls from Elizabeth Westfield. She'd already heard. I started at Aspen Grove back when it was still called New England Literary Associates, a boutique operation with just 18 employees and a handful of loyal regional clients. I'd walked away from Horizon Books after they were acquired by one of the Manhattan publishing conglomerates. I'd abandoned a corner office and substantial salary because I couldn't stomach what corporate efficiency was doing to the craft of publishing. James Aspen hired me personally. "We don't need someone who can manipulate spreadsheets," he said. "We need someone who understands that books still happen because people care passionately about stories." For the first 5 years, I rebuilt the regional division from nothing. Put 90,000 miles on my car visiting every independent publisher from Maine to Virginia. I knew their tastes, their specialties, their challenges. I remembered their children's names and sent handwritten notes when they lost parents or celebrated anniversaries. Not because it was strategically advantageous, but because that's who we were. By the time James retired and his daughter Catherine took over, we'd grown 350%. Catherine understood the business, even if she was more focused on expansion than her father had been. She left me alone to run things my way. For years ago, when the board started discussing bringing in external leadership to modernize operations, Catherine fought them. But when a heart attack took her last year at 61, there was no one left to defend our approach. The cracks began appearing before Sophia was even hired. Board meetings where the term legacy thinking kept surfacing. Questions about why our team wasn't leveraging predictive analytics or implementing client journey optimization. Nathan, my deputy director who I'd been preparing as my eventual successor, started receiving invitations to strategy sessions I wasn't included in. He'd report back, uncomfortable with his role as messenger. They're talking about restructuring, he told me 4 months ago, creating separate digital and traditional channels. I should have recognized the warning signs. Should have noticed when they hired 4 engagement specialists and placed them on my team without consulting me. Or when they began reassigning my long-term clients to the new digital team without explanation. Elizabeth Westfield had called me directly when they took her account from me. Some 20-something emailed me today, she'd said. Claims he's my new account manager. Says they're optimizing client touchpoints or some nonsense. What's happening over there, Malcolm? Just some reorganization, I told her. Nothing to worry about. But I was worried. I just didn't know how to fight a battle when I didn't understand the weapons being used against me. The day after my termination, I sat in my home study staring at my phone. 22 missed calls. 47 text messages. 9 emails marked urgent. Calls from clients and industry contacts who'd heard the news. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even my wife, Sarah, who was visiting our son in New Haven. I needed to process it alone first. The call that finally made me answer came from Elizabeth Westfield. What the hell happened? She demanded, skipping pleasantries. They're going in a new direction, I said, repeating the corporate line. That's absolute garbage. Elizabeth snapped. You are that company to most of us. Do they understand that? I didn't respond. I met with that new person yesterday, she continued. Alex something. Spent 50 minutes showing me engagement metrics and conversion funnels. Not once did he ask about our new literary fiction series, the one I told you would determine our entire year. I closed my eyes, suddenly weary in a bone-deep way that had nothing to do with fatigue. They'll figure it out, Elizabeth. No, they won't, she replied, because people like that never bother to learn what actually matters. They just impose their system and expect everyone to adapt. After we disconnected, I opened my laptop and examined the email Aspen Grove HR had sent detailing my severance, 5 months' salary, health benefits for 120 days, a non-disparagement clause, and a non-compete preventing me from working with any of their clients for 1 year. I nearly laughed. They thought they could legally prevent decades-old relationships with a single document. My phone buzzed again. Richard Blackwood from Meridian Press this time, another major client, another friendship cultivated over years of mutual respect. I heard what happened, he said when I answered. It's their loss. When you're ready to talk about what's next, call me. By evening, I'd heard from 11 major clients representing over 45% of Aspen Grove's annual revenue, all expressing the same sentiment, loyalty to me, not to the company I'd been pushed out of. I sat on my back porch as dusk settled, nursing a glass of bourbon and contemplating an idea that had begun as a fleeting thought that morning but had crystallized with each conversation. They discarded me because my methods didn't align with their shiny new digital strategy. Because I built relationships instead of analyzing metrics. Because my client records were filled with personal notes instead of CRM data points. But what if those supposedly outdated methods were precisely what those clients valued most? What if the very approach Sophia Chin saw as my weakness was actually my greatest strength? I pulled out my phone and called my attorney, Rebecca Goldstein. Rebecca, I need you to review something for me. A non-compete clause. They let you go? She asked, audibly surprised. They did. And I think it might be the best thing that's ever happened to me. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to continue doing what I'd always done, helping publishers connect with the right partners. And if Aspen Grove no longer valued that service, plenty of others did. That night, for the first time since the termination meeting, I slept peacefully. 2 weeks after my termination, I met with Rebecca in her downtown office. She'd reviewed my non-compete agreement and had unexpected news. It's essentially unenforceable, she said, sliding the document across her desk. They made several critical errors. The scope is too broad, the duration excessive, and most importantly, they can't prevent you from using your general knowledge and skills in the industry. So I could start my own consulting practice? I asked. You could, Rebecca nodded. But there's a complication. They'll still sue you if you try. Even if they ultimately lose, they can make the process expensive and exhausting. I considered this. Aspen Grove had substantial resources and a board that wouldn't hesitate to deploy them against a perceived threat. What if I don't approach any clients directly? I asked. What if I just become available? Rebecca smiled. That's an entirely different scenario. The next day, I filed paperwork to establish Reed Literary Advisors. No website, no marketing materials, no outreach campaign. Just a legal entity that could accept payments and provide services. 3 days later, Elizabeth Westfield called. "I hear you've established your own shop," she said without preamble. "News travels quickly," I replied. "In publishing, like electricity. Listen, I need help with our spring catalog strategy. Aspen Grove's new team is pushing us toward commercial fiction, but my instinct says we should double down on our literary translations. I'm still considering my next steps, Elizabeth." 20,000 for 8 weeks of strategic guidance, she countered. No direct competition with Aspen Grove services. Just helping us make informed decisions. It was a generous offer, carefully structured to avoid direct conflict with my non-compete. Still, I hesitated. "I need to think about it." "Don't think too long," Elizabeth said. "We're finalizing decisions next week." After hanging up, I received an unexpected call from Nathan, my former deputy director. "Can we meet?" he asked, his voice hushed. "Not at the office. Somewhere quiet." We agreed on a small cafe near the public garden, well away from the publishing district. Nathan looked anxious when he arrived, constantly glancing toward the door. "It's bad," he said once we'd secured a corner table. "They promoted me to your position, but I'm just a figurehead. All the real decisions are coming from the new digital strategy team." "That's not surprising," I replied. "No, you don't understand. They're systematically dismantling everything you built. They've reassigned all your major accounts to the digital team. They're implementing a mandatory engagement platform that none of the veteran sales representatives can navigate. 5 people have resigned already." I took a sip of my coffee, keeping my expression neutral. "And the clients?" I asked. Nathan glanced around before leaning closer. "They're furious. Meridian is threatening to terminate their contract. Elizabeth Westfield hasn't returned calls in 10 days. The quarterly projections are disastrous, and Sophia blamed it on transitional friction, saying it's expected." He hesitated, then lowered his voice further. "But there's more. They're watching you. Legal had a meeting about your non-compete yesterday. They're concerned you might poach clients." Now I understood his paranoia. He was risking his new position to warn me. "Thanks for telling me this, Nathan." He nodded, then slid an envelope across the table. "Client contact list. Updated with personal emails and cell numbers." He stood to leave. "I didn't give you this, and we never met today." After he left, I sat for a long time turning the envelope over in my hands. Using this information would be exactly what Aspen Grove feared and expected. It would justify legal action against me, possibly even against Nathan. They'd set a trap anticipating my next move, which meant I needed to make a different one entirely. I left the envelope on the table untouched when I walked out. A month passed. I hadn't contacted any Aspen Grove clients, despite daily calls from publishers asking for assistance. I deflected politely, citing professional considerations. The non-compete might be flawed, but I wasn't ready to test its boundaries yet. Instead, I focused on industry contacts outside Aspen Grove's client list: small independent presses, university publishing houses, literary agents seeking guidance, work that wouldn't trigger legal issues but kept me engaged in the field I loved. Then came the invitation I hadn't expected. Calvin Harrington, chairman of Aspen Grove's board, asked to meet privately, not at the office, but at his club downtown. I accepted out of curiosity more than anything else. The Boston Athenaeum was all polished wood and hushed conversations. Calvin, 68 and silver-haired, waited in a private reading room with 2 cups of coffee already poured. "Thank you for coming, Malcolm," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite his. "I imagine you're wondering why I requested this meeting." The thought crossed my mind. He pushed one of the cups toward me. "Things at Aspen Grove aren't proceeding as anticipated." I took a small sip, saying nothing. "Revenue is down 42% this quarter," Calvin continued. "Client retention has fallen to its lowest point in company history. The digital initiative that was supposed to transform our business model has instead alienated our core client base." "That's unfortunate," I replied neutrally. Calvin studied me. "You don't seem surprised. Publishing is a relationship business. Always has been. So I'm learning." He leaned forward. "The board is concerned about Sophia's leadership. Her strategies may have worked in tech, but publishing operates differently." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because we'd like you to return as chief client officer above Sophia in the organizational hierarchy." I stared at him, processing the offer. "What about my replacement?" "Nathan's a capable professional, but he doesn't have your client relationships or industry knowledge." And Sophia would accept this arrangement? Calvin's expression hardened. She would have no choice. The pieces suddenly aligned. This wasn't about this quarter's revenue. This had been building for longer. Sophia wasn't the board's choice, was she? I asked. Calvin sighed, his facade cracking. Sophia was Catherine's hire. Her last major decision before her health deteriorated. The board had reservations, but we deferred to her out of respect. After Catherine passed, we gave Sophia the opportunity to prove herself. She hasn't. And my termination wasn't approved by the board. We were informed after the fact, as were several other significant organizational changes. I sat back, understanding the complete picture now. Sophia had been clearing out Catherine's people, replacing them with her own. My dismissal wasn't about digital transformation. It was about removing anyone loyal to the previous leadership. The offer is generous, Calvin continued. Double your previous salary. Complete authority over client relationships, and the board's full backing to rebuild your team. It was everything I should have wanted. Vindication. Power. Security. I need time to consider, I said. Of course. But don't take too long. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. On the drive home, I analyzed the conversation from every angle. The board hadn't just realized they'd made a mistake with my termination. They'd known it was wrong from the beginning, but had lacked the courage to intervene, until it affected their financial returns. Suddenly, they wanted me back. And there was something else, something Calvin hadn't stated explicitly, but I had understood anyway. They wanted me to be the hatchet person, to return and dismantle everything Sophia had built, and eventually Sophia herself. They didn't want me for my relationship skills. They wanted me for my client list and the loyalty that came with it. The realization didn't anger me. It simply clarified what I needed to do next. I declined Calvin's offer the following morning with a brief, polite email. His response came within minutes, an offer to increase the compensation package further. I didn't reply. Instead, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Elizabeth Westfield. I'm ready to discuss that consulting arrangement, I told her. But I'd like to suggest a different approach. I'm listening, she said. I won't consult exclusively for Westfield Literary. Instead, I'm forming a collective, a consortium of independent publishers who share resources, distribution channels, and market intelligence. No long-term contracts, no corporate hierarchy, just publishers helping publishers, with me facilitating the connections. There was silence on the line. Then, how many others have you approached? None yet. You're the first call because you were my largest client. Because I trust your judgment, she corrected. If you think it's a viable model, I'll move forward. If not, I'll stick to traditional consulting. Elizabeth didn't hesitate. I'm in. And I know at least 6 others who would be too. My second call was to Richard Blackwood at Meridian Press. As I predicted, he not only embraced the consortium concept but suggested refinements to the structure, including a shared digital platform that would give smaller publishers the reach of larger organizations without sacrificing their independence. The third call was to Rebecca, my attorney, to ensure the plan wouldn't violate my non-compete agreement. You're not working for their clients, she confirmed after hearing the details. You're creating an entirely new entity that their clients choose to join. It's a subtle distinction, but a legally significant one. Within 3 weeks, Reed Publishing Alliance had 8 founding members, all former Aspen Grove clients who had either already departed or were planning to when their contracts expired. Each contributed to an operational fund that would cover my salary and the basic infrastructure needed. The key wasn't just building a competing organization, it was creating something Aspen Grove couldn't easily replicate, a cooperative structure where publishers maintained their independence while gaining the benefits of collective resources. No one appointed me CEO or gave me an inflated title. I was simply the facilitator, the connector who understood what each member needed and who could provide it. We leased modest offices in Cambridge, away from Boston's financial district where Aspen Grove and other corporate publishers clustered. I hired 2 staff members, a recent journalism graduate to handle communications and social media, and a veteran publishing operations manager who had recently stepped back from full-time work but wasn't ready to fully retire. Word spread rapidly through the close-knit publishing community. By the end of the first month, 4 more publishers had joined the alliance. By the end of the second, we relocated to larger quarters. I was careful never to directly solicit Aspen Grove's clients. I didn't need to. They came to us, drawn by the success stories they were hearing and the frustrations they were experiencing with the digital-first approach that ignored the personal connections at the heart of publishing. Nathan called one evening in mid-October, 3 months after we'd launched. "They know what you're doing," he said without preamble. Sophia's furious. "She's talking about legal action." "We haven't violated any agreements," I replied calmly. "That won't stop her from trying." He paused. "There's a board meeting tomorrow. Quarterly results. It's going to be brutal." "That's not my concern anymore, Nathan." "I know, but—" He hesitated. "I thought you should know. And I wanted to ask, is there room for one more at your venture? I've reached my breaking point here." I smiled to myself. Everything was unfolding exactly as I'd anticipated, not because I sought revenge, but because I understood the industry in a way Sophia never would. "Come by the office tomorrow," I told him. "We'll talk." The quarterly earnings call in November told the story numbers never lie about. Aspen Grove Publishers reported a 51% drop in revenue compared to the same quarter the previous year. Their stock plummeted 22% in a single day. I didn't listen to the call myself. I was in a planning session with 16 Alliance members, developing our collective approach to the upcoming industry conference in New York. But Richard texted me the highlights, Sophia blaming market disruption and transitional challenges. No mention of the obvious, that their largest clients had simply moved on. Later that afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Malcolm Reed?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking. This is Victoria Drummond from the Aspen Grove Board of Directors." Her tone was icy formal. "I'm calling to inform you that we voted to waive your non-compete agreement, effective immediately. We've also authorized our legal department to prepare a cease and desist regarding what we consider tortious interference with our client relationships." I waited, letting the silence stretch. "Do you have any response, Mr. Reed?" "Just one question," I said finally. "Have you spoken with your clients directly?" "Not through account managers or satisfaction surveys. Actually sat down with Elizabeth Westfield or Richard Blackwood and asked why they left." "That's not relevant to me." "It's the only thing that's relevant," I interrupted. "They didn't leave because I started something new. They left because Aspen Grove stopped valuing what mattered to them." "The board meeting is still in session," she said after a moment. "Perhaps you'd care to join us and explain your perspective directly." "I appreciate the invitation, but I'm in the middle of my own meeting with 16 publishers who've chosen a different path." She was silent for so long I thought the connection had failed. "I see," she said finally, and ended the call. The cease and desist never arrived. 3 days later, the business section of the Boston Globe ran the headline, "Aspen Grove CEO steps down amid financial turbulence." 6 months after launching Reed Publishing Alliance, we moved into permanent offices in a restored brownstone in Beacon Hill. 26 member publishers now, with a waiting list of others hoping to join. We'd expanded beyond New England to include small and mid-sized publishers throughout the Northeast. The industry had taken notice. We'd been featured in Publishers Weekly and the Wall Street Journal's business section. "The relationship revolution in publishing," one headline proclaimed. I hadn't set out to create a movement, just to preserve what I knew worked. But sometimes the old ways become revolutionary again when people remember why they mattered in the first place. Calvin Harrington called on a Thursday morning. Aspen Grove had a new CEO now, promoted from within, someone who'd been with the company for decades. "We'd like to discuss the possibility of Aspen Grove joining your alliance," he said, no preamble. I smiled to myself. "That's not how it works, Calvin. We're not accepting members of your scale. Perhaps a partnership arrangement, then?" "I'll bring it to our leadership council," I told him, though I already knew what the answer would be. The publishers who had joined us had done so precisely to escape the corporate approach Aspen Grove represented. After hanging up, I walked through our open office space. No executive suite for me, just a desk among the others, where I could be part of the daily conversations that kept us connected to what mattered. Nathan looked up from his workstation. "Everything okay?" "Just fine," I nodded. "Aspen Grove wants to join the alliance." He laughed. Talk about coming full circle. Later that afternoon, I walked through the Boston Public Garden, the same spot where I used to sit and think when challenges at Aspen Grove seemed insurmountable. But today, there were no problems to solve, just a quiet satisfaction in knowing that what I'd built would endure. Not because it was revolutionary or disruptive, but because it was founded on something that never truly changes. People trust people who've earned it. Sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to you. not because it leads to revenge, but because it forces you to build something more authentic than what you left behind.